Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar session about Maths Mastery and the ED platform. My name is Leke. I'm going to be your host for today, and I'm one of the school manager here that we have ED. A few rules before we get started. This webinar will involve me explaining to you the collaboration between Maths Mastery and the ED platform. At some point as well, there'll be opportunities for you to ask questions. If you do have any questions at any stage, literally just pop in the question on the right-hand corner. You'll be able to ask your question. So the flow of my presentation is not affected. I will be answering questions at the end of my presentation. To make it a bit more interactive as well, there'll be opportunity for me to get you guys involved. So I will be asking you to take part in a poll. Once we get to that stage, this will pop in at the right-hand corner of your screen. So please do get involved within the poll stages as well. First of all, thank you for taking your time to join this webinar this afternoon. We do not take it for granted. So that's very much appreciated. Let's jump straight in. What is ED? ED is an education technology company with the sole purpose of making education visible for three key stakeholders, which is yourself as teachers, the student that you're teaching, and their parents. How do we do this? We use a system called diagnostic questions. Most of you in the room would be familiar with what diagnostic question is, just to make sure everyone is on the same playing field and there's a clear understanding of what diagnostic question is. Here's an example of a diagnostic question. And the question states, which list below has the numbers in descending order? And there's possible 4 answers that you could choose from. So this is given in a quiz style question. I'm going to send a poll now to you guys. Please take part in the poll. And the poll is, what do you think is the most popular wrong answer? Okay, the results are coming in. Few people have gone for C. Some people have gone for D as well. Again, feel free to jump in, choosing the answer that you prefer as well. So it's quite evenly split at the moment between C and D. So what do you think is the most popular answer? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Is it D? C is still in the lead. So quite a few more people have picked C. I'm going to give you a few more seconds for those that are not ready yet to just jump in and pick their answer for that question. Okay, the results are in. Most of the people in the room have selected C as the most popular wrong answer. I'm going to review the results now. As you can see, clearly, B is the correct answer in this scenario. Interestingly, A and C are the most common incorrect answer. The interesting thing about diagnostic question, we're not only just interested that a young person has got the answer right or wrong, we're interested in when they select the wrong answer, the reason they might have selected that wrong answer, and what possible misconception that wrong answer might reveal about that young person's understanding. So looking at answer A given, which is our second most common misconception, as you can see in this example here, answer A actually reveal that the young person might have made a mistake around arranging negative numbers. So as a teacher, if you understand this is where that young person is going wrong, you're better placed to give that young person a tailored support to help them overcome that misconception quite early on. A simple 5 minutes numbers exercise could address this misconception quite early on. Let's look at answer C as well, which is our most common misconception. Again, the misconception around this question is specifically around literacy, so it's more around the language use. Again, just sitting down 5 minutes intervention with that young person to explain the difference between descending and ascending to them will resolve this misconception quite early on and preventing it from appearing later on. So to summarize, a diagnostic question is a quiz-style question that helps you as a teacher understand where your students are going wrong by revealing specific misconception they have about a maths question. And by knowing that question as a teacher, and by knowing what misconception they have around that question, you're better placed to help them overcome in terms of where they're going wrong. In this example here, you could see the data for a similar question across different age group. To draw your attention to a couple of facts here. Again, as you can see clearly, students age 10 to 11 scored better overall and seem to have less misconception around this question. Interestingly, as they get older, so students age 15 to 16, the misconception is still there. So what this reveals to us then is best to tackle the misconception early on. And if it doesn't get tackled early on, the misconception will still reveal itself later on as the students get older, which makes diagnostic question and formative assessment really useful for teachers to try and support their students quite early on. Here at ED, we have where everything we do is research-based and research-backed, and we're lucky enough to have one of the thought leaders on education supporting us and guiding us through that process. Most people in this room will be quite familiar with the work of Mr. Barton, Craig Barton, and Craig Barton is our head of education, and we've got someone like Dillian Williams as well, who is not only our advisor, but he's got years of experience within the education technology industry. So it's great to have these people on board and guiding us in what we do. Specifically today, I'll be focusing on the collaboration between Mathematics Mastery and the ED platform. So what does the partnership involve? The content writer, to specific Craig Barton, and the content writer at Math Mastery scheme of work have written brand new diagnostic question tailored to the need of the Math Mastery scheme of work, which means every topic Math Mastery is assessing their understanding of their students. We've written diagnostic questions around the topic units, and we created that specifically for you. So it's a very tailored content. We'll also support you through the setting up process. You could chat to us live from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. if you need any support at any stage. We've got the new year 7 curriculum and the GCSE in that process. The good thing about this will be available in September, and it will be all set up for you. It's free for you to access ED, which is a good thing. Yeah, I mentioned there are three key stakeholders involved with ED. So there's teachers, there's your students, and there's parents. So why should you, as a teacher, use this platform? One of the key things around ED, my internet is a bit slow, it's just loading that page now. One of the key things around ED is about the formative assessment. So at a glance, ED identifies not only that your students have got a question right or wrong, but it shows you why they're going wrong. Sorry, my internet connection seems to lose itself there. I'll just go over that part again. So in terms of as a teacher using ED, we're using questions, and the advantage of that is it reveals to you not only that your students have got a question wrong, but it tells you where they're going wrong. So you're better placed to solve that misconception and help them resolve that misconception. The diagnostic question is created and approved for the Math Mastery scheme of work. One of the keys as well is there are 3 ways you can interact with the platform. We've got a misconception tab, so we're bringing misconception forward, so you're quite clear on what your students understand and what they don't understand. As you can see here, there's 3 tabs. We've got the recent quizzes, upcoming quizzes, and the weakest topic area. The recent quizzes focuses on tailored to your student based on the quiz they've just recently taken. It shows you what are the 3 most common misconceptions that they have around that topic area. So you could try and address that at a glance straight away. It also show you the weakest topic area and the most common misconception around those topic areas. So you could try and address that as well. The part that I love the most about the data that's given to you on our platform is about the upcoming quizzes, because we collect data from millions of students doing the quizzes across the country that are similar age group to your students. We're able to allow you to plan for error as a teacher, meaning if you got a topic coming up, i.e., let's say algebraic proof, before you teach that topic, you're able to go on our platform and look at what are the most common misconceptions around that topic area. You could then discuss that common misconception within your classroom to ensure your students do not make the same mistake. So a really quick way to resolve misconception before it occurs in your students. The other exciting part is your students are able to see that their results straight away. So there's an immediate feedback for them around where they're going wrong and what they could do to improve that without creating any additional work for you as a teacher. Setting up the scheme of work is really straightforward on the platform. It's been created specifically for you, as mentioned, around the mass mastery scheme of work. So it's really tailored for your needs as a school. The way it works, around each topic unit, there'll be 2 quizzes that's released to your students. Immediately after you finish teaching the topic unit, quiz A will be released. Quiz A is looking at the understanding of the information, and there will be roughly 10 questions. 3 weeks after, quiz B is released, and quiz B is looking at the retention of that information over a 3-week period. And what we're looking at this stage is to see whether they retain that information. So what would this look like? Question 1, for example, in quiz A, and question 1 in quiz B would be identical question. What we've done, we just move the numbers around to ensure that we're still testing the same misconception. So your students are being tested straight away without any additional workload for you as a teacher. And all this is done automatically via the ED platform, tailored to the content of the mass mastery scheme of work. Editing the scheme of work is really straightforward on the platform. The first thing is I would advise is you could change how long your students have to complete an homework. So you could see here there's days applicable. If you click on that, you could adjust the number of days they have. So for example, we've got 3 to 7 days, and that means they will have 7 days between when the homework is set and when the homework is due. We also know that different topic units, depending on the ability of the class, might take different length of time to complete. So what we've done is we've given you the freedom as a teacher to extend the topic unit and shrink according to the need of your class as well. So if you have a class that might take a bit longer to understand the topic unit, you then spend more time teaching that topic, and that quiz will not be released to them until you're happy that they've understand that topic. And if you have another class that's a bit more, that's quicker in accessing information and understanding information, you could reduce the length of time that you're spending on that topic. And this is, again, a really straightforward process, and you literally just hovering around the cursor and dropping that up and down to reduce or extend the length. The other key step around this is you can't really juggle around the length of the topic units. The key thing we'd advise, though, because of the way the mass mastery scheme of work is set up, we will not recommend this because each topic is linked to the other one, but that function is there, but it's not recommended for the mass mastery scheme of work. There's also more freedom for you and clear visibility as a teacher on your dashboard to see what quizzes are coming up for your students. The first thing that you could do is on your dashboard, you're able to see and preview what quizzes are coming up. So you can see what sort of questions they'll be getting. You could also access the results from this section. The key thing around there, because the quizzes on, we've also given you more freedom to decide when that quiz is released to your students. By clicking on the edit side, you're able to edit and choose the quiz start date and the quiz end date for a particular topic area. So that freedom is up to you, and it's depending on your need, you decide when you want the quiz to go out to your students, and the quizzes are automatically populated and released to your students so they could take the quiz. When it comes to feedback, we know feedback is really valuable. Earlier, I was able to show through that question and data how misconception, if not resolved at an early age, does carry on to a later age among students. And the best way to resolve that misconception is by giving effective feedback. The way you give feedback on ED saves you time. So we help you reduce the time it gives to take feedback So what do I mean by this? In the example that I showed earlier, answer A was the second most common incorrect answer. And what that reveals is students might have a not a clear understanding of negative numbers or how to order negative numbers. Rather than, let's say, 10 students have picked this answer, rather than having to write that individual feedback for those 10 students, ED automatically group those students by that misconception. And by the click of a button, you could address that all those 10 students by giving them a tailored feedback that address them specifically in where the gap in knowledge is. So it saves you time in giving feedback. One thing that it really does as well that I really like, it creates a feedback loop. So when you give people feedback, you're not quite sure whether that young person has engaged with the feedback that you've given them. On ED, you're able to see where they've read your feedback, where they've answered any follow-up education as well, and you're able to have a clear understanding into your class results. There's less commitment from students around this as well, because they receive the feedback straight away and they know, they'll be able to access that on the platform. There's a question from Deborah and the question, I'm just going to take this now because it's quite important whilst I'm still on this scheme of work. It says, is the math mastery scheme of work not available until September? Yes, Deborah, that is correct. So we're still working and creating the content, and the math mastery scheme of work will be available in September. Moving on, away from the teacher's experience, the benefit for the teacher includes analytics as well. So on the analytics section of ED, you can compare the quiz results from quiz A and quiz B, whether the retrieval between whether your students have been able to retain the information over that 3 period, and that's tested automatically for you. And what the data will show you and what you're looking at is you want the gap to be getting closer between quiz A and quiz B. For students, one of the key things around student is the instant results, so that immediate feedback they get on ED. So earlier I explained, teacher can give additional feedback to the students, but actually the students would receive an immediate feedback on our platform. Once they've logged onto the platform, they'll take the quiz that's been set around the topic area. Immediately they finish taking the quiz question, let's say a round of 10 questions, they'll be able to review that question. And on that review page, it will tell them what answer they've given. So their answer, as you can see, in this example, is answer B. It tells them what is the correct answer. So this correct answer here is A. And then in addition to that, what we're able to show that student is the misunderstanding that's associated with the specific answer they've given. So we'll explain to them, you've chosen this answer B. It's possible you've chosen answer B because you have this specific misunderstanding around this question. Here is an explanation, and then we'll show them the ED explanation, which is a clear explanation of how to arrive at the right answer to that question. In addition to this as well, there's some video resources and worksheets that are available that's been matched to 80% of the question. And we've partnered with Oxford University Press for the for the video resources. Over the summer as well, we're working on some of our own video content that we'll be able to release by September as well. So straight away, your students, they do a question, they get immediate feedback about where they're going wrong to help them resolve that misconception better as well. We have a mobile app, and that mobile app is accessible on iOS or Android as well. And the reason we've developed the app is we know a lot of young people in the UK have access to a smartphone. So we've try and make education as accessible to them as possible. So this is something that, again, that's free for your students to download on our site. For parents who are the third stakeholders in our education, parents are able to see on our platform, there's a parents app that we've developed. They're able to decide how often they want to engage with their students on the platform. So there's that personalized learning for their child. A parent could decide, okay, I want to interact with my child on ED once a week on a Saturday afternoon. And what that parent will be able to see without creating any additional workload for you as a teacher, they'll be able to see what homework the child is called upcoming and when the child homework is due as well. A parent will have access to the resources as well, so that parents could discuss and using the resources that we have to try and support the child. So there's visibility on all assignments, and there will be real insights into what the child is struggling on and what they could do to support the child. In addition to the parent, to the teacher support as well, parents will also have a 24/7 support from us here at ED. So again, the three stakeholders, without creating any additional workload for you as teachers, I've got the visibility around learning. You as a teacher have a clear understanding into what your child is struggling, what your students are struggling on. The students get immediate feedback around what they're struggling on and how they can overcome that misconception. The parents get real-time insight into what the child is learning at school and what they can do as a parent to give that child a nudge, if that child needs a nudge around doing homework, or to just sit down with that child using some of the resources that we have to help them misconception that they might have. That brings me to the end of this webinar. What is next? So a lot of you would have received a direction or email from Maths Mastery to dial into to this webinar, which is great, and we're glad to have you on board. In terms of next step, we want to get you set up for September, in preparation for September. So all you have to do is drop us an email at hello@ed.co.uk, letting us know that you've been part of this webinar and you'd like to take the next step to get your classes set up. It's really straightforward, and we'll walk you through that process. You can decide to set up with us manually, where we upload your student manually on our system, or you use a third party that we use called Wand, and Wand is GDPR compliant. So are we at ED. And the advantage of using the Wand is it will allow automatic class management at your school. So that means if a new student join the class on your system, automatically they will join our system as well. We will also keep you updated about information about launching ED to your school. That brings me to the end of this webinar. What I'll then do now is I'll open the floor to more questions in the next 5 or 7 minutes that I've got left. I've got some questions already, so I'll read those questions out loud for the benefit of everyone else within the webinar. If you do have some questions for me, please drop those in. On the right-hand corner, there's a question tab. Click on those questions tab and type in your question. I'm going to take a question from Tracy, and the question is, will we hear from ED or Maths Mastery that the resources are ready? Great question, Tracy. As mentioned, assuming you mean the video resources or when you could set up schema work, I'll try and address both. In terms of the video resources associated with every question, they are currently live on our site and they're ready to go, and they've been matched with 80% of the questions that we have. In terms of the Maths Mastery schema work, that will be ready by September. Craig and the Maths Mastery team are currently working behind the scene to make sure that's ready for you. I would advise, though, do not wait till September. You can still set up uploading your students before then, and then in September, we'll be more than happy to help you in the process of actually creating your schema work and assigning it to your class. I hope that answers your question, Tracy, but if it doesn't, please feel free to follow that up. And another question, which is on the similar line, will ED be available for all the students following the Maths Mastery schema work again? That's an interesting question. So as long as there's no age limit, so as long as you as a teacher or head of a department wants to use follows the Maths Mastery schema work, you can create a class and assign it to those students. Again, it will be more than happy to support you in that process, Barry. So you can just drop us an email at hello@ed.co.uk. That's a bulk of the questions coming in. I'm just going to give you a few minutes or so if you're still thinking about a question to ask and you're not quite sure yet, just for those last minute questions to come in. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm going to get any more questions. So I'm just going to wrap you up again. Again, thank you for joining in. Oh, I've got one more. Great question, and this is very content specific from Laura, and I'm going to read the question out loud. It says, there are 17 units in the new year 7 scheme of work learning for math mastery. Does this mean would there be 17 quizzes, or would there be more depending on subunits? So the way we work, again, I'm not one of the content writers, but what will happen is based on the math mastery topic, specifically for the new year 7, there'll be 2 sets of quizzes created around each topic unit. As explained earlier, so basically once you finish teaching the topic unit, there'll be 2 tailored quizzes around that topic unit. Quiz A would be released immediately after you finish teaching the topic, and then quiz B will be released 2 weeks after. And quiz A and quiz B are addressing the same topic unit. So quiz A would be looking at the understanding, and quiz B will be looking at the retention of the information. So essentially, to answer your question, there'll be 2 quizzes per topic units, depending on how many topic units there is. Roughly, that'll be 2 times how many units that is. So if there are 17, there'll be 34 main units over the years. I hope that answers your question, Laura. I've got another question here from Gemma. And the questions, again, it's a really good question. Are there going to be pre and post tests like they were this year? Are they going to be replaced with these 2 quizzes? Great question, Gemma. So I'm guessing, just to kind of like clarify your question, I'm guessing what you meant by that is, are there going to be a quiz before you start teaching the topic unit, and then another quiz to address the understanding of the information once you finish teaching the topic unit? The way ED works, it works slightly different from that. So there wouldn't be an initial quiz assessing the understanding of the information before it starts. But as mentioned, you could use the misconception tab, if you remember I mentioned earlier, and to help you plan for error. So actually, before you introduce the topic to your students, looking at the misconception tab, you're able to see similar mistake that's been made by similar age group students around that topic unit, and then you could try and resolve that within the classroom. So that could be your pre-test. And then what ED would then do automatically is once you finish teaching the topic, it would then release 10 questions to them that will be looking at the understanding of that information, and then the retrieval will be tested automatically 3 weeks after. Again, I hope that answers your questions, Gemma, but if you need any more clarification, feel free to come back to me around that question, or drop us an email at hello@ed.co.uk. Okay, I'm just going to give you 1 minute or so just to see if any more questions come in. We still have time, guys. If you do have any more questions, please drop it in. Great question by Barry Woodward. So I'm going to read the question. Just to clarify, would there be quizzes for our year 8 and year 9 scheme? Currently, we're only in plan to write out the quizzes for the year 7 and for the GCSE students. So that will be from year 9 to year 11, I'll imagine, or year 10 to 11, depending. So I'll say no to that. But we will be in touch with you around that with more information once we release the year 8 and year 9 one. But definitely there'll be quizzes for your year 7 students and your GCSE students. Okay, I'm going to give you just a few more seconds. I've still got roughly about a minute left before I wrap up. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in. If they do come in, guys, if you do have any last-minute question that you think of, you can drop us an email at hello, which is HELLO @ed.co.uk, and we'll take that up. Again, just to recap, ED has collaborated with Mathematics Mastery, which is great. So without creating additional workload for you guys, there'll be diagnostic questions tailored to what the learning objectives are from Math Mastery around each topic unit. And by using ED, you're able to use formative assessment to test your student understanding of specific content across the year, and all that's done automatically by the site without creating additional workload for you as a teacher. This will be released specifically in September, the scheme of work will be available on our site. But in the meantime, what you can do is get your students uploaded in time for September. There's two ways to do that. You could drop us, you will drop us an email at hello@ed.co.uk, and we'll walk you through those two processes, which is a manual process, which is straightforward, and we'll upload your students for you. Disadvantages around the manual process is every time something changes from your end, you need to update us for us to change that for you, or you go through the automatic class management, which we use a third-party company called Wand, and that means again, that's a 15-minute call between you and Wand, which will direct you through to link your system to our system, and Wand is GDPR compliant. Once you've set up, you could start reaping the benefits of ED as a teacher. Have access to the misunderstanding that your student might have around the question, and the advantage for your students is they get that immediate feedback, and parents at the school as well are kept in the loop of what your students are learning without creating additional workload for you as teachers. There, guys. Thank you again for joining this webinar session. I hope you have found it useful. If you feel like you have any last minute questions, or you're still quite unsure about anything and you still want us to follow that up with you, please drop us an email at hello@ed.co.uk, and we will follow that up with you. Thank you guys for joining this call again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good day, guys. Bye.